LEAFEON is one of the strongest speedsters in Pokemon Unite right now. So I'm going to break down everything you need to know about this Pokemon and how to abuse its power to make you the best player you can be. I'm going to go through the moves, builds, items, emblems, and some extra tips to make your LEAFEON the best LEAFEON in the world. Starting with the abilities of the Pokemon. Eevee's ability is Run Away, which will increase your movement speed when you're out of combat. And Chlorophyll does the same thing, except it gives you a gauge below your health bar, which will give you a strong boosted attack, or an instant activation of your Solar Blade. The moves that you start off with are Swift, which is a high damage projectile in a cone, which means it will be a lot more effective at closer ranges, and Quick Attack, which is just a little dash with a bit of damage. Rather than talking about the moves separately, I'll go through them in terms of their builds, because there is two split builds that you'll use with this Pokemon, and both play quite differently. The first build is using Razor Leaf, which fires a cone of leaves that can be drawn back to LEAFEON for some extra damage, and Aerial Ace, a little dash with damage, and your next attack will become boosted. The second build in this video is the Solar Blade build. Solar Blade is a move that you charge up and it will do large amounts of damage and will instantly activate if you have got your Chlorophyll bar full. Use this alongside Leaf Blade, which does damage around LEAFEON, and it also charges the Chlorophyll gauge by 1 second, and we'll get into that more with some tips at the end of the video. The first build with Razor Leaf is to be played in the central area, and the second build with Solar Blade and Leaf Blade is mainly used in the lane. More specifically the bottom lane, but you want to keep bouncing between both, and we'll get into that further in the tips. The upgraded versions of these moves I will go over quickly. Razor Leaf gets increased strength to its shield that it gets during this move. Solar Blade, while charging, will give a 40% damage reduction. Aerial Ace reduces the cooldown of these two charges. And Leaf Blade will reduce the move cooldown by 1.2 seconds for every enemy hit above one Pokemon. And the Unite move, unlocked earlier than normal at level 8, is Emerald 2-Step, which can be classified quite easily as a lock-on move that will deal high damage to the Pokemon that is hit, which also slows them by 50% for 2 seconds. The buffs for this move will give 80% more move speed and a 20% max HP shield. The items can also vary between these builds, but the general items you want to be going with are Razor Claw, Scope Lens, Muscle Band, Energy Amp, and Float Stone. There are some other niche ones that you can also use, like Body Barrier, but that's not very good lately, so I'd probably stray away from that nowadays. And the lane build with Solar Blade can also run attack weight, if that is your playstyle, if you like to stack. It can work, just be careful because you do have a low health pool. The emblems I'll go over quite quickly. 6 brown, 6 white as most Pokemon use, focusing mainly on maxing out your attack stat. Now I'm going to get into the tips and tricks for using this Pokemon. The first thing I'll talk about is using your Solar Blade before your Chlorophyll is charged, because when your Chlorophyll bar is charged, the blade will have a shorter cooldown. So if you use your Solar Blade in its charging form, so the one where you have to charge it up before you use it, you can use 2 of them quite quickly, because if you use that one, and then your next one will be ready as soon as your Chlorophyll gauge is full. Second thing I'll talk about, and probably the most important thing, is to keep your distance. You are not a ranged attacker, but you still want to stay pretty far away from your opponent unless you're using the Razor Leaf build. This is mainly because of LEAFEON's frailty. Just generally don't overextend as much as you can, because 9 times out of 10 when you're in the enemy backline, you will just die because of how low health you have. The third thing I want to talk about is to bounce between both lanes. LEAFEON's high mobility, down to its boost in movement speed when out of combat, means you can assist both lanes quite easily. You want to keep bouncing between the lanes, helping both lanes of your team. The next thing I will mention is using Solar Blade to secure objectives and farm. Solar Blade is such a high damaging move, especially with the Chlorophyll charge. It makes it really easy to secure farm, Obviously not as easy as something like a Blaziken, but it's still very good. So use it where you can. And the next thing I mentioned is to make sure you're using your Solar Blade first before your Leaf Blade. Especially when your Chlorophyll bar is charged, you want to use your Solar Blade and then Leaf Blade, because your Leaf Blade, as I mentioned before, will give you an extra second less before your Chlorophyll bar is full once again. And so it helps to charge that bar and keep it up most of the time. The final major tip that I will mention is to unite as much as you can. Obviously, make sure you have your Unite move for the Rayquaza fight, but the Unite charges so quickly that you can just keep farming and just have the Unite move ready for your next fight. So as soon as you use your Unite move, you can go back to the jungle, back to any side Indeedis in the lanes, and get your Unite move back quite quickly and have it ready for the next major fight. So now I'm going to go through the gameplay breakdown of this video, talking you through everything that happens in this game. I'm starting off with my quick attack. This is the game I use the Razor Leaf build. So I'm going in the central area and I'm just trying to get this central farm finished and down to my bottom lane as fast as I can. They're using the quick attack to finish off the Xatu and get a bit of distance so I can get to the Excavalier quickly. Again, just moving through, trying to get this farm as quickly as possible. I do get my level 4 here, but I'm just going through getting my farm as fast as I can so that I'm ready at least for the Altarias, possibly before that. Right here, I am at the lane by 9 minutes and 10, which is quite early since they've not even taken out the bottom Indeedee yet. And so I'm able to put a lot of pressure on the bottom lane. Altarias are about to spawn. I have my Razor Leaf up and ready. This Absol is pushing at my base, and so I'm just trying to sort of multitask in a way, trying to get these kills while also watching these Altarias. I do manage to get them all, and so I'm leading ahead in this game quite well. LEAFEON is very strong at staying in front in levels all the time, so if you can stay over the level of the enemy central area, then you'll find yourself winning a lot of your games. Again, I'm going back to my central area and then going straight to these central Altarias that spawn at 8 minutes. Again, I'm already far enough in the levels, I'm just taking this so that the enemies don't get it. Helping out the Sylveon here, getting as high of a level as I can, ready for the Reggies spawning in 30 seconds. Right there, I don't run at the Mamoswine, because Mamoswine is probably the most threatening, well, not the most threatening, but one of the more threatening characters to go up against as LEAFEON. This is mainly because of the Ice Fang. If they choose Ice Fang, they can take you out of position very quickly, and so if they're in a big team fight, they can hook you out and bring you into their team. And like I said earlier, that is a very bad position for LEAFEON to be in. Even though the Alolan Ninetales was quite low and was not very high level, I'm using it mainly because it's just easy to keep farming it constantly. I do decide against going to help my team here because the bottom Reggie is really just more important. And I'm just trying to, once again, take it so that the enemies don't have it. Unfortunately, we do lose that top objective, but I am able to get this bottom Reggie. And so I'm going back to my base so I can quickly go help my team. Unfortunately, it is after they've already scored, and so I am a little bit late, but I am able to take out this Piloswine. Again, I'm not really approaching that Ninetales who's just Unite moved. I'm just going back to my central area, getting my boost once again. As someone who is in the central area, you need to keep going back to that central, getting your boosts, making sure that the enemies don't just snipe your central. This Absol does Unite me, but I do have mine return, so I can just take him out really quickly. Again, I'm level 12 at 5.5 minutes, which is honestly kind of over leveled, but kind of not. Again, going and getting the central farm so that the enemies don't have it. I'm now pivoting down to the Reggie that will spawn soon, but obviously I'm going back to get my central boost. Luckily, my supports don't steal this here, but Just make sure you always have your boosts and make sure you're always returning to that central area, because it's your job as the central Pokemon to keep getting that farm. Again, I did misplay a bit here, but I'm just repositioning, stepping back a bit so that I keep my distance from this team, and so I can reposition and get some good damage in hopefully before they score, but I don't believe I do here. Again, it is always good to look back on your mistakes. Just make sure you're always reviewing your footage, because the best way to improve is to improve on your own mistakes, and you're not going to know what mistakes you're making unless you go back and check. We do farm this Reggie quite quickly, and so I'm just pivoting back up to get my central area now. I do kind of want to get this score here, and so the Alolan Ninetales starts to back off, and so I'm just taking this opportunity and getting this nice 50 in the goal. You do want to make sure that you are not always scoring, but prioritizing the score over kills in this game, because at the end of the day, that is what will win you the game. Here I'm not going straight to the objective, I'm just making sure this Mamoswine does not get the score, so I'm just taking him out first before I make my way over. Again, I'm getting my boosts back, ready for the Rayquaza fight. Obviously I'm a bit late, but I'm just making my way into the central, ready to do this fight. For some reason in this game, they all decide to just go score, and so we are able to get this quite easily, but you've always got to just make sure, keep your Unite move ready, because you never know who will approach you, you never know what will happen. That's going to be it for today's video. If you like these Pokemon Unite guides, I have a playlist that I will put on screen now. I will also put on my personal favourite video, a speculation of what if Farigiraf was in Pokemon Unite.